With that, help me welcome Frank.
Thank you. I'm Frank, and I'm an alcoholic. Hey, Frank. And it's a privilege to be here, be sober tonight. And I was thinking a little bit earlier today about my friend. He called me. He was at Sunset Beach, headed into Wilmington, and that's where I lived for a long time. And he was telling about all the people heading into Wilmington. I was down there yesterday. I got in there to do a little work, and as I was leaving, all the people coming in there, and then I was thinking about where I live now. And as we were on the phone, he was telling me about all the traffic and everything. And it's about 1 o'clock, and I was looking around, and I was like, well, where I live at, I've seen about 2 cars in the last probably minute and a half. I said, there's a little pond up there on the left. And I said, as much as I used to really like that excitement and all of that, I wouldn't, that don't interest me anymore. And I'm so grateful for that. You know, tonight I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what my life was like, what happened in my life, and what it's like today. And I don't have no wow story, nothing that's going to knock you off your feet. You know what I did is I drank a lot of liquor, did a lot of other things, came to AA, got a great sponsor, worked the steps, and I'm sober. You know, and that's just the truth. You know, I grew up in a little town over in South Carolina for about 10 years, 12 years, Sherall. It was a good little town. As I get older, I like smaller things like it was when I was a kid. I ain't really into the big hustle, bustle, 1,000 cars and all the people. But my mom and dad drank. They drank every day. You know, like a lot of parents, you know, sitting in AA. And, you know, my dad was an educated man. And I love my dad. I'm here to tell you, he's my dad. And he might not have been the best man in the community, the best man on the job, I don't know. But he's all I had. And he died in '98 sober through Alcoholics Anonymous. And to me, he was a good man. He'll always be a good man. I got a stepfather now. I don't know if anybody ever experiences this, but I just can't call him Dad. I ain't trying to figure it out. You know, he says, "I love you, son." I'm like, "Have a good night. Love you too, sir." I don't know if that's loyalty or what, but I just can't call him Dad. I'm not trying to get into splitting hairs. I was on the phone with him a while ago, and we were talking, and I don't know if he's looking for that or not. I ain't, you know. But I love him. He's a good man. He's been good to my mom. That's what's important. But my mom and dad drank every day, and every day that I remember anyway. And eventually we would move. A lot of things happened. I'm not going to get into that he beat her and blah, 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 and all that stuff. And that's just a lot of things that went on. But it was read up here tonight, and I say this when I share my experience in my young childhood, that I wasn't responsible for a lot of things that happened when I was a kid. You know, I think someone read it in the long version of how it works. Some of us suffer from grave emotional mental disorders. And there were just things that happened in my childhood that, shit, I only know what I see. I only know what my parents do. Apple don't fall too far from the tree. I found that to be true later in life. And you know, and I didn't grow up in a very stable environment. I just didn't. You know, there wasn't a lot of tuck in at bed. There wasn't a lot of sitting around on Saturday night watching TV, eating popcorn with the family. We didn't have that kind of family. And I know alcoholics that do. That just wasn't my experience. And as life has gone by, you know, I see where I became very dysfunctional. You know, these traits, these experiences, they were given to me as a gift, if you want to call that. And make a long story short, you know, AA has taught me how to sometimes act better, be a better person. You know, it's hard to change a person's personality. At least it's been hard for me, and have to really do a lot of practicing in AA. Thanks to Tom, my sponsor. You know, I thought I had to get it right in here. And he said, "No, you just got to practice it. That's what it says. It's practice." I'm like, I can do that. And so what was said is the dumb man approach works for me. And of course, I'll get into that aspect of it. But my mom and dad, we moved from South Carolina back to North Carolina. I was born up here in Raleigh at age 2, moved down there, stayed 10 years, moved up North Carolina to Wilmington. And I remember the first time I drank, it was in South Carolina. I didn't like it. I was 12. No, I was about 14. No, I was 12. 12, 13, 14, whatever. Didn't matter. Numbers don't really matter to me. But the point is, it didn't really do nothing for me. I didn't like it. It didn't make me feel like putting a cape on or flying or doing it again. It didn't taste good. I didn't like it. And I saw what it had done with our family. I mean, really, really bad. You know, alcoholics get what I'm saying. You know, I look back on it now, it makes sense. You know, why when I was growing up, I was crying sometimes or laughing in inappropriate places or dysfunctional in society and didn't fit in. You know, I mean, God, I was embarrassed. Our family was not. We weren't doing too good. I mean, on the outside of the house and the car, we looked like we was getting by okay. And I ain't saying this in no funny way. I didn't have a lunch ticket. And that's okay if my kids did or your kids did. So what I'm saying is financially we did okay. We didn't do great. We did okay. And but inside, man, I remember so many times, like I would not want to get up from sitting where Sandy's at and walk out the door. Because I don't know why I felt like the world was looking at me. You know, I knew what had gone on in our house. And I'm sitting at my neighbor's house. It's time to go home. I'm like, man, I don't want to get up. That was so hard to do. Even to get up and put my shoes on and say, see you tomorrow, Todd. My best friend for 10 years. And don't know why, just the environment and the things that went on. The grades weren't good, didn't apply myself. Really didn't apply myself to much in life, whether it be jobs, relationships. Didn't matter. I never really applied myself. And as a direct result of that, I come up with a below average lifestyle. You know, didn't keep a job long. I mean, a lot of things, you know. Nothing really seemed to work. I didn't really work for it. And I began in, what was it, 77. I went to Laney High School down there in Wilmington. And in 78 or 79, my parents moved away. Spoiled kid I was. They said, we're going to move. We got to go up here near Outer Banks. And Dad's got a job up there. And I said, well, I don't want to move. They said, well, you want to stay here? And I was like, yeah. They said, all right, well, we'll get you a little apartment and drive this car here. Brand new car. I ain't even out of high school and they give me a brand new car. Brand new. Camaro. Not a Volkswagen, Camaro. Spoiled little kid. And so I'm driving it, burning the tires off, going to Goodyear, getting them old polyglass GTs. They're very expensive. Throwing them on Dad's credit card, you know. He's like, damn, son, what are defective tires? What are you doing? I'm like, I don't know, they just don't last long, I guess. And spoiled is the point I'm trying to make is a spoiled part. You know, everybody's picking the ticket up for my life. Cause rent, back in the 70s, if you made a long distance phone call, you can bet you paid. They won't none of this damn $100, all you got, minutes and No, you talk for an hour, it was $30, long distance, Southern Belle. And I did. Of course, I had to get a girlfriend that lived in New Jersey or somewhere. And met her at the beach down there. Thought I was Joe Cool. I want nothing. Anyway, the drinking began to pick up, and I began to do other things. And there's respect to Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what I'll leave that at. But those are the things that occurred. Got a job in construction, making minimum wage in 1980, $3.25 an hour. As you can see, in the last 30 years, it ain't gone up much. So that's what I did. My dad told me, you know, my dad was always the kind of guy that, even though he had his own faults, he didn't push or shove nothing on me. He graduated at Wake Forest. I respect him for that. He's a good man. And he said, son, I had a chance for a little golf scholarship. Now, we all know that they can offer you a scholarship, but if your grades ain't good, you ain't going to get in. And I knew my grades weren't good enough. I wasn't getting in nowhere. And he said, well, he was excited. He was like, well, would you pick which school you want to go to? Well, like I had a handful of those two little junior colleges. And I said, no, I don't think I'll do that school thing. I said, I worked last week down at Carolina Beach. I made $300 pouring concrete. And he said, that ain't going to last, son. He didn't say, look, you get your ass. Never. And I'll fast forward, I remember, because my parents always bailed me out. Not sometimes, always. And I'd got in trouble with the IRS, fast forwarding way on up, just speaking about how spoiled I was and depending on parents and others to bail me out. And there was a big bill that came in from the IRS, and it was big. It was real big. And calling down on the phone, I was telling him about it. And he just sitting there listening, Yeah. Uh-huh. And he said, well, let me know how it turns out. Damn. I was just telling you how it ain't gonna turn out. And he wasn't gonna pay it. he wasn't picking up that tab. But that was my point is I've always been looking to my parents to bail me out of stuff. And when he died in '98, my mom was like, "Buddy, you done." And she meant it. And she meant it because I was about to go to jail one time. And I told her I need some bail money. She said, "No, I don't think so." I'm tired of pouring good money behind bad money. You need to probably go in there and stay for a while. So just kind of fast forward, bouncing back. That drinking, as it talks about in my experience with the book, it took on a bigger part of my life. You know, things that were important weren't as important anymore, like going to work, calling my girlfriend. You know, they weren't important. I don't know if you've ever experienced this. If I got a check on Friday, I always worked on Saturday. I wasn't showing up. It just wasn't going to happen. And they brought me in the office and they said, we got a problem. And I was a pretty good producer, you know. They said, we got a little problem here. And I said, well, what's the problem? They said, well, you've missed the last 8 Saturdays in a row. So what we're going to do is you need to sign this form. And what this says is if you can't make it to work on Saturdays, you don't have a job. And we're going to wait and give you a paycheck on Monday. Well, it was about 2 weeks. I pulled it off about a week like a good alcoholic. And that following week, they fired me because I couldn't show up to work. And it started taking on a more important part of my life. And I eventually lived behind a homeless shelter in Wilmington off of Dock Street. Anybody knows where Dock Street is. And remember that like it was yesterday. You know, I know that the alcohol and other substances is out of control now, but in the late 70s, early 80s, on through the 80s and early 90s, it was way out of control. I mean, we outnumbered them, meaning the police, probably 30-1. It was so far out of control. At least it was where I lived at. And it was so readily and so easily at nighttime liquor houses. And that was my experiences. That's what would happen is I didn't, relationships were done. I didn't care about that. I didn't care about the family. Never really have been a big family guy. You know, it's changed some since I've been sober, but not a lot. Not a lot. I do what's been asking me to do, show up with a present on a birthday, you know, try to learn how to have a new way to live. Call my daughter and talk to her, you know, try to continue with a better relationship. But I never have been a real big family guy. I don't know really why. Can't explain it. Don't really care to understand it. You know, and there's pluses and minuses that in my experience. So, but the drinking part was the big deal. What happened was I found out that I couldn't do anything without drinking. Nothing. And any alcoholic can understand that. To where I got to where I become what I know to be today is a spot of hopelessness. You know, I didn't have any hope of ever having a home, ever having a wife, a baby, that being a father, a consistent job, a car that I could keep instead of it getting repossessed, all of that stuff, insurance, tags, that kind of stuff. It got to where, those things would get gone quick. And so first treatment center I went to in '95, I was there 30 days and didn't like it, stayed there 30 days, got out, got drunk that night. And in my head I rationalized, and what I said was this. I was at Walter B. Jones up there in Greenville. I said, I was riding home about 2 in the morning. I said, well, it ain't that bad this time. I'm getting home a little bit early. And I mean, I remember that ride home right now. I remember, I'm like, what time is it? 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock. That ain't too bad. And in my head, I'm like being real serious about it. I'm like, you know what? That's not as bad as it's been before. 5 in the morning or not going, that kind of thing. Well, you know how that works, and eventually it gets out of control. For me, being a real alcoholic, and there were many times that I was married in '85 to '90, that my wife at that time would put up with things. If I'd have done it once, I'd It wouldn't. She'd had to go. My family too. They tolerated my behavior. When I was drinking, arrogant, little brat, I wouldn't have put up with that. And that's why today I can spot it in the guys I work with. They say you spot it, you got it. I know that's good and bad. I get it. But I can see it. You know, it's so clear. And but this drinking deal, what happened was eventually it just got to the point where I couldn't stop. You know, there were many times where I would put myself in a bad position, life-threatening position. And I remember coming to AA. I went to NA for a little while. Fellowship didn't seem very bonding, not many in the fellowship. And I said, well, I don't really like that a lot. And but it was either, I think it was NA, the other fellowship. They said it's either jails, institutions, or death. And there was a day where that really made sense to me. Early on, I didn't care. I didn't ever want to stay sober. I didn't care what you said in here. I probably came because I was, you know, my family made me come, or maybe my ex-wife, or, you know, one of them reasons. But I wasn't in here to do what people do to live sober. And the truth is, I never saw how serious my mental condition was, you know. And I'd always try to fix it. I'd try to find a girl, probably put about 40 pounds on, lifting weights, maybe get a cell phone. Now, if you had a cell phone in '78, it was in the car, that was a big deal. I'm here to tell you. I was the guy that went out and paid 20% interest to get a $600 phone put in, and I didn't know how I was going to make that payment, but I was looking cool. So I thought. Oh, boy. Anyway, you know, so as far as drinking it, and other substances, my life got way out of control, and went to the first treatment center, got drunk when I got out, came back home. My deal was about every 2-year deal. That's always been my experience. About every 2 years I show up at a treatment center or call and try to get help. Went to Samaritan Colony. I went to another one up in Butner, I believe. Went there a couple times. I think it was a couple. I know I went to Colony a couple times. And I remember the first treatment center I went to, I said, there was a group called Phoenix Group. There's a guy in there, and I said, well, how many of these things you done been to? And he said, well, I've been to 6. And I'm like, damn. I thought you went to 1, and you come out and I didn't know. I had no experience, you know. And so I'd go on to go to about that many. And went to Colony. I didn't do nothing there when I was there. I didn't do nothing. You know, they asked if I wanted to go to a halfway house, and with my pump, arrogant self, I said, are you kidding? A halfway house? Why would somebody do that? I would find out later why, you know. And I remember I left the first time I went back home. I think I stayed sober 2 or 3 months. Got drunk again. And this is what I did. I'll never forget it. I wasn't going to AA, but I was going to go to church. And I like church. And I'm here to tell you, the book I read says, see religious people right. I believe it. I believe it here. I'm not here to put down churches. I like church. And I say that, and I'll tell you why I say that. I've met 3 people in Alcoholics Anonymous. Met them at gas station. I ain't seen them. I say, how you doing? They said, good. So I ain't seen you in a while. You going to come? I ain't come back there. I said, really? Why not? All y'all do is bash churches. I remember that. I remember that. You know, this ain't the only place people get to stay sober. But what we know is this works. But I ain't here to bash church. But I did. I went to church. And I didn't have a thing called a sponsor. Ain't nobody in church asking me, hey, you been doing your gratitude list? You been doing this? No accountability is what my point is. And people there, how you doing, Frank? Good to see you. Good to see you too. That's about it. They didn't even know I'd been to a treatment center or got out of jail or whatever. And so I thought, well, I'll just ride by an old place about 2 miles away, old boys I used to hang with, to make sure they're doing okay. Stupid. Inexperience, I guess. And so I did. First time I went there, sat there, everything started coming out of the woodwork, you know, whatever. And I said, well, I better go. I left. I went by the next week, I didn't leave. Then I come to AA and they say, Get to the barber shop, you get your hair cut. Well, yeah, I guess that's right. Yeah, thanks for the information. So anyway, go back to another treatment center. Like I said, in 03, I went to the colony and went down there. I remember going in there. I had a rented apartment. Let me just tell you, I've never owned a home. I've never qualified for a mortgage. Not ever. Not one time ever. Anything I've ever lived in has been rented. And I don't mean that in a bad way. But I'm 51 years old. You think about it. 51 years old, I might have bought a home by now. You know? Or at least when I was telling people I was living out there. So I had an apartment. I was telling about my little nice apartment down there at the beach. Little boat I had. Wave runners. I had 2 wave runners. And I'm in a treatment center. And they told me when I came back in 05, they let me know real quick about how full of, what I was. About your rented apartment, your boats, and all the stuff you got. Reality was I had relatives paying for every bit of it. I wasn't able, wasn't capable, couldn't hold a job. And I remember I came here in 05, went to colony. Normally my process is that I can't stop, so I'm going to stay out there until I get arrested. That's the only thing that'll stop me. I don't have the power to give up. I don't have the power to, it's getting pretty bad. I don't have the power to go to bed. Other guys are like, man, we need to lay down and get a little nap here. So I'm like, yeah, that ain't, okay, see ya. And I'll do things, that are illegal, get arrested, and I ain't here to glamorize, broken a home, stole, whatever. Went to jail, and stayed in there a little while, got out, and next thing says, you can't live here. It was the last place I had to live. They said, if you want to go to treatment center, I'm like, might as well. Or it's back out there on the street again. I don't really want to do that. And here's the thing inside. See, I'm not a complete idiot. But I know there's a better way. I know there's a better way. And I know there's a better life. And from the experiences I've had for 20 years living in and off the streets, and I know the worst ain't happened yet. I mean, I've seen the worst happen. I've seen people and what can really happen. I know people that have died as a direct reflection of untreated alcoholism. I use the word untreated alcoholism today because I can identify with it. Before, I didn't know what that was. So I said, man, if I don't get help, I'm going to die. Like, no bullshit, I'm going to die. These people that I'm dealing with, they're all about one thing, money. And if you can't pay, too bad, we'll see. And so this deal about money or jails, institution, death, it clicked one day. I'm like, damn, death, that's the only one that ain't happening. So we got arrested, went to Samaritan Colony in 05, and did what was asked me to do. But it didn't start out that way. It started out, and everybody pretty much knows Harold. So he's helped thousands of people. And I'm not that guy that you can hold and caress and tell me that it's going to get better. The truth better come, and it needs to come pretty firm. And it did. I was there on my 3rd day, and he said, there you go, sticking your nose in something that you ain't none of your business. Again. But he didn't say it like that, I'm here to tell you. He was really upset. And I said, sir, I apologize. And he said, I don't want to hear you're sorry. He said, you full of shit like you were when you were here last time. And but he didn't crack a smile a bit. And it didn't come out real smooth like that either. It was real forceful. And I was scared. I knew this man knew what he was talking about. I knew he had seen punks like me before. Kids that thought they knew what was going on, that didn't have a clue about staying sober. Thought they knew everything. I don't know if you've ever had that thought in your head. Well, I know. Get the I know syndrome. I know. Yeah, I know. I remember I did that with Tom ago. He goes, well, if you knew, we probably wouldn't be here. He said, it isn't what you know. It's you don't apply what you know. I'm like, damn, you're right. You're right. And so he said that to me, and it scared me. It scared me as much as some of them guns that were stuck in my face before. It really did. Because I knew that if I didn't pay attention and do what was asked me to do, and I didn't know I had the ability to do that. And So I stayed there the remainder of time, and I kept my mouth shut. Like, if they were to ask a question, I ain't asking. I don't know. I don't know. Because the number one, I was going to get embarrassed. I don't like getting embarrassed. I don't know about you. You shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. Yes, sir. You know. And I'm 42 at this time. I mean, I'm not like some of these young guys in here, 17, 18. I'm 42. You know, life's passing my ass by quick. I remember when I was 20, 25, I'm like, 25 is the deal, man. I'm going to get sober at 25. 30 sounds good. I'll do it at 30. 35 sounds good. 35, I'll knock it off at 35. 40's shit. I better quit. I gotta cut this damn thing off. But I can't cut it off. That's the problem. I can't cut it off. And so anyway, what happened was they said I was approached by Robert, one of the counselors there. He says, "Would you like to go to the Bethesda?" I said, "Sure." It didn't matter where it was. Didn't matter where it was. My experience, and that's not other. There's people here tonight that I know they got sober and stay sober in the town that they were born in. Not me. I've never done it. That's my experience. That's not your experience. That's mine. And what I learned in AA and I learned about life is I got limitations. I got to play the hand I'm dealt. There's things you can do I can't do. I'm okay with that today. That's a good thing to feel comfortable today. Like you say, well, you want to do so and so? I'm like, nope, can't do it. Okay, all right. So I did. I had the privilege to go to Bethesda House. Stayed there 11 months. And it was, along with the whole, since I got sober, the whole process has been unexplainable. I guess the word's phenomenal, you know. And went over here and Richard Mabry come back there and he'd come pick me up in the morning times. I didn't have a license. I didn't have a car. He'd come over and pick me up, take me down here to the gym. We'd work out and we'd have meetings. Man, thank God for Richard. And others as they would come along. I knew when I was around certain people, I was okay. That was one of them. That was one of them. It wasn't like he was asking nothing from me. It wasn't like he was demanding that I do anything. But he was doing Alcoholics Anonymous. I think he'd been sober about 1.5 years at that time. And I'd walk from that gym right on up to work. Man, I had a good life. I had a place to stay. I didn't have to pay no rent to get in. I had a bed. I had a place to hang my clothes. I had a washer, a dryer, a shower, towels, food, and transportation. Coming right out of treatment center, man, that's a pretty good deal. Try to go back home and accumulate all that shit overnight. Ain't no license. Pretty big deal. Anyway, that's what we do. We go to that gym. We'd have meetings. I'd cry. He'd cry. It's a good deal. Not all the time, but that's all right. Then we went down here to retreat down in Myrtle Beach. And I guess I was sober about 3 months. And I was coming here, going to meetings. Had met Neil and John and other people that are here tonight. And Rich said, we'll go to this retreat down in Myrtle Beach. I'm like, okay, good, whatever. And so we go there, and it's a big deal. There's a lot of people. I don't know how many people. I met AJ. A lot of people at this retreat. I mean, hundreds. Big. So Rich says, well, go ahead on in. I'll get coffee or something. I don't know. So I go in, I sit down where Danny's at on the side. Richard walks in the door. He's seen me sitting there. He goes, what are you doing? So I got you a seat right here. He said, man, we ain't sitting here. I said, what are you talking about? He said, no, we're going to get out in the middle, bud. He said, you sit on the edges, your ass fall back out. He said, I'm like, yes, sir. Okay. And so that's what we did. We sat in the middle. And since I've been sober, my life has really been helped out a lot by other people that have been sober longer than me, that have more experience than I do. It's also been helped by people that haven't been as sober as long as me. That helped me too. But I really needed that guidance to get on the right path when I got here. And it's people like Richard and others that big influence in my life. So I came over here. Back then the window was open in the back. You pop in that window back there, your shirt would get hung up, tear your shirt. We smoked in here, a lot of smoke. Eventually got that knocked out. So Richard told me about cleaning ashtrays. I had a sponsor. Jack Queenie, a lot of men in here know Jack, good man. Passed away, I think in 07 or 08, I'm not sure exactly. And we talked. We talked every day. I don't mean this in a bad way, but that's all we did. We talked. So Rich and I, we give here, he showed me how to wash the ashtrays. He showed me how to make coffee. We didn't have a nice coffee pot we got now. We had the ones where you had the directions on the wall. And he said, "No, that's how you make the coffee here." And I go, "I know how to make the coffee." I mean, he'd make it like it says right here. He says, "We're going to do what they say do." I'm like, "Whatever, man." So I did. And, so what I'm saying is people are teaching me directions, how to follow directions. Get out of the middle, get in the center, get out the center, get in the middle, whatever. Make coffee, how they say make it. Then they showed me where the bags were to take the trash out. And just simple things in AA. Fill the chip tray, things I can do. Day one, I can do this stuff. I can shake some hands. "Hey, I'm Frank. Your name's Paul. Good to see you, Paul." That's it. I ain't got to go there and try to be Mr. AA, save the world. Just shake hands, move on. Anyway, started doing those things, and I wasn't doing anything in here. We were having a study back here on Thursday afternoon. It was Richard's sponsor up front. And, man, really a lot of experience in AA. I came in there. Now, this is the first time or second time I come in. I looked at Richard. He's at the end of the table. Richard was my mentor. I looked at him, and his sponsor started saying something. I'm like, "I don't like that something." He said, I said, "It's a good man." His sponsor's a very good man. He's been a big help to me. I went to later I had the privilege to go to a Pucks of Enthusiasm at Virginia Beach with him. Good man. Good man. Man really lives AA. He's probably reading a book right now, some kind of AA book. I'm telling you, he's a solid guy. Anyway, about 3 weeks later, I come in and I said, "Man, I'm about to drink, guys. About to drink." They took time and they talked to me. I was riding drug areas in company cars. By this time, I got my license, looking for prostitutes. About 3 or 4 months sober, about to drink. And what I'm saying is I was not working any steps. I come to AA for 12 years. I never worked any steps. And I'm here to tell you today that this has been my experience. If a man and woman don't work them steps, there's going to come a day again where they're probably going to drink or blow their head off. And that ain't here to scare nobody. That's just been my experience. I've watched it happen either way. I've sponsored guys that that's happened with. So it's a big deal. So Tom was sitting over here about where John and Jason and Carl are at one night. I'd never seen Tom, and I was chairing a meeting here. And when you come in AA, the topic was trust, and people like, I'm about trusting this guy here, or if I'm a woman, about trusting her, what's this information? But in the streets, I'm like, where you going? You coming back, ain't you? Can I go with you? I can't go with you. Go ahead, I trust you. Hell, they don't never come back. They don't never come back. You see them about 30 minutes later, they go, "I don't know what, the guy wasn't there," Lost the money, fell off the bike. Anyway, so the topic was trust, and make a long story short, the issue was I can't find anybody to trust. And Tom shared, and when he did, and Tom, I thought, Tom, just when he started talking, I turned my chair, just something, there was an attraction in delivery of his speaking. And he said, and when he finished, he said, "I come to the meetings because I love you." He said, "And I lock the doors on my truck because I know you." And I went, "Now that guy, that's some damn wisdom there." I bet y'all locked your doors tonight, didn't you? Anyway, after the meeting, Tom approached me and he said, "I hear you're new." And I said, "Yes, sir." Tom's about 8 years younger than me, but it'll always be yes, sir, or no, sir, for the most part. And I said, "Yes, sir, I'm new." And he said, "What you getting ready to do?" I'm like, "Well, I'm in the halfway house. I got a curfew about 10, 11 o'clock, whatever it was. And so, I'm doing whatever you want to do." He said, "You want to get some coffee?" And I'm like, "Yeah, heck yeah." So we rode up here to little Frankie's coffee shop up here in Aberdeen, or Southern Pines. I can't remember where it's at. But anyway, I know where it's at. I don't know what it's called. But anyway, that's what we did. We drank some coffee. We sat there for about 2.5 to 3 hours. We drank some coffee, I'm telling you. And he talked, and I'd talk, and he talked, and I'd talk. We did that the following week. Same thing happened. See him at the same meeting on Friday night. Called, what you doing? Nothing. Go call. Yeah, great. Called Hugh up. I said, Hugh, I said, if you don't mind, Tom is here, and you mind if I stay out till whatever the curfew, a little bit past? He goes, no, Frank. And I believe that they kind of thought I was really trying. Like no bullshit. Like I'd get up in the mornings and read. Hell, I didn't know what I was reading. I was reading that blue book, though. I was reading that, and I was reading that 24-hour-a-day book, and I was going to meet and putting my name on the list. Something was working. He said, yeah, Frank, you can stay out. Go ahead. I mean, not late all night, but just be here whatever time you can do. That's what we did. So the third week rolls around, and I said, man, I need a sponsor, bud. He says, I thought you had a sponsor. And I just started crying. I said, man, I got one. We ain't doing nothing. I said, I ain't real smart, but I've been around AA for 12 years. I ain't never stayed sober. I said, man, I got a feeling I need to be doing them steps. I'm about to drink. I'm riding drug areas looking for prostitutes. I said, yeah. He says, I'll tell you what. He said, you go to that man and tell him thank you for everything he's done for you. And then you come back and ask him to be your sponsor. We'll go from there. He didn't say he'd be my sponsor. He said, do that, come back. I'm like, damn. Okay. So I went to Mr. Queenie and met him right back at the golf spot. I think it was on the men's meeting on a Monday night. And I said, Jack, you got a minute? He said, yeah. I said, look, I decided to get another sponsor, and I want to say thank you. That's what he told me to tell him. Thank you for everything you've done for me. And he said, Frank, I understand. I understand. So immediately after that, I got up with Tom the next night or so, and I said, I did what you asked me to do, sir. What do I do now? Well, I said, will you be my sponsor? He said, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I want to answer them tonight. I want you to think about them. Let me know tomorrow. I'll meet you at the meeting. One, are you really lit this time? And two, are you willing to go to any length for victory over alcohol? And I, of course, me being the guy I am, I aggressively said yes. And he said, no, think about it, Frank. I ask you to think about it and let me know tomorrow. I don't know about you. I've always gone through life at 100 miles an hour, just wide open. I want to hurry and get sober, get a damn 1-year chip in about 3 weeks. You know, I want the girl back, the car back, the job back, and just put all this shit behind me and life's good. Hurry up and get through this. I got to get that done. That kind of attitude, you know, because I don't know nothing about staying sober. If I just get this shit over, then I get on back to whatever. And I found out that ain't the way it works in AA. People like Greg show me that. That ain't the way it works in AA. At least it's not for me. It's not for me. Peter, people like that show me. So he became a sponsor. I met him. He met him right somewhere in this area after a meeting on a Monday night, I believe it was. And I said, answer the question, sir, is yes. And he said, it'd be a privilege to be your sponsor. He said, come on, I'll talk to you a minute. We sat down right at that middle table. He said, Frank, what's going to determine whether you stay sober or not is your willingness. Now, I don't know what that means at this point. What it means to me. Not to you, to me. He said, now, willingness doesn't mean that you got to like to do it or that you want to do it. Willingness means that you do it. He took all the negotiation out of it. Now, see, now I go back those nights that we were talking, those 3 weeks in a row. What I didn't know was he was listening. Like no shit. Like he was listening. Storing the information back. Not... And he said, you remember those nights you told me? He told me situations that really surprised me that I had told him, hell, 3, 4 weeks ago. You remember when you told me blah, 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 blah? I went, yeah. And you had to do this, da, 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 da. And I went, yeah. He said, that's willingness. He said, it's just been misdirected. We're going to get it lined up here in AA. I said, okay. He said, you already got the willingness. It's just been misdirected. What I'm telling you is this. What Tom's done for me is he's never used real big words or never pushed, shove, or tried to sell nothing. It's been the attraction within his personality. And I'm like, man, if I could be like that guy. He told me something one time blew my mind. He said, you know what a man's going to remember when he walks away from you? I said, no. He said he's going to remember how he felt when he was around you. And you know that's the truth. If I look back in my life to the men that I really was the most attracted to, it was in their spirit. He told me something else. He said, if you stay sober long enough, He said, you'll have the privilege of working with other guys. He said, I'm going to tell you what you'll learn about that man. You won't never know what his bank account looks like, how he's doing in his family life, or how his job's going. But what you'll learn about that man, if you devote time to him, is you'll learn his spirit. He said, you ever had a best friend that you ever had that was real close to you? And I went, yeah. He said, you ever been talking to him on the phone and you knew something wasn't right? And you'd say, what's wrong? I went, yeah. He said, that's because you knew his spirit. I'm like, damn, man, this guy's making sense to me. This shit's coming alive. You know? I'm like, it makes sense. And that's all it needed. I don't have to know a lot of stuff. Just connecting a few dots for me. And he wasn't real in his delivery, you know, he wasn't a jerk like me at times. He was kind of soft, you know. So he said, we're going to work the steps. He said, and you're going to have an experience. I don't know what it's going to be, but you're going to have one. I didn't really I'm like, ooh, wonder what that means. Because he never told me any of this information. He's like, we're going to pray about it and see what happens. And I'm like, all right. I'm not holding in for the ride. I'm like, he obviously more successful with this thing than I am. So we started working the steps, and I'll never forget, we opened up the book, and the first page there's blank. He says, what do you see? I said, nothing. He said, that's what you know about staying sober. And he wasn't rude, or it wasn't like, hey, dumbass. None of that. That's what you know about staying sober. It was always about the truth. It wasn't whether I was white, black, fat, skinny, ugly, just about the truth. And I'm like, that's true. I don't know nothing about staying sober. So all of this was really helpful, nice information. And I found out there's the nice to know. That's early on in the cover on up a little ways. And then there's the need to know, starting there in the doctor's opinion. At least that's been my experience. So we started working these steps, and I remember one night I met him over at his house, and he had the 3rd edition. People have been around for a long time. They know what a 3rd edition is. Hell, I know no third, whatever. That's been my attitude, you know, until I got here. And I saw he had a book that was smaller than mine. And he had a big old ottoman. He's sitting there, and I'm sitting there, and I kind of glanced over, and I'm looking at his book, and I'm going, what the hell that is? And he looked, he said, what are you looking at? I said, no. Oh, no, sir. No. He goes, yeah, you was. Well, you was looking at my book, wasn't you? And I went, yes, sir. He said, you want to be looking at that book? He said, that's the sponsor's edition. That's where all the answers are. Yeah. He said, nah, just kidding. Just kidding. You see what I'm saying? Having fun. And I guess that's the thing that I'm trying to point out is when a man's willing to get sober or do what's asked him to do, man, it's not that difficult. But if you're like me and you're resisting it the whole way, absolutely no chance. I had no chance. And so we worked steps, and there was one time I got really angry. And because we devoted a lot, he did, a lot of time. Like, you know how you read, read every single person, blah, 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 blah. We went line by line by line, and we would dissect. He would dissect every 2 or 3 lines, stop, and what, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay. And I'm writing down, and I'm listening, and my experience was lining up. And it was a part we got to that there'll come where all things stands between you and a drink's a power greater than yourself, higher power. Oh, I slammed that book. I said, whoa, buddy. You mean after all this work, that means I'm going to drink? He said, that ain't what it says, right? And I got that day. That day came. I was living over here off of Highway 5, and it got on me. And the thought process turned into an obsession. And Harold done told me about the 3-second prayer, and I forgot to do it. And then it dawned on me to do it. And what that means to me is, and it was explained to me this way, and this stuff all makes sense today. A thought is a thought, and then the more it stays in your brain, it turns into an obsession, and the next thing you know, it's got you. It's done consumed the majority of your mind. It's what happens with an obsession. And so in the first 3 seconds, not 13 or 23, I got 3 seconds, dropped to my knees and prayed and asked God to remove that thought from me at once so I may be of service to Him and others. But for some reason, I didn't do it that day. Or that evening. It was nighttime. I was laying in the bed. And boy, it dawned on me. I got out of bed, rolled my knees, hit the ground, prayed. Didn't drink. It's always the gauge. Didn't drink. Something's working. So I don't know what's working, but something's working. I'm taking these actions. And I remember when I was sitting at this table with Tom, and I said, man, I've been coming to AA for 12 years, and this and that and the other. And he said, well, I mean, just so you know, this ain't no spiritual problem of attendance. He said, it's a spiritual problem of action. Damn, I guess that's right. I don't know if you've ever come to AA for a long time and drank again, but I did. And that's what he was pointing out. You know, he said, there's a chapter in the book, and we'll get to it. It's called Into Action. It ain't into thinking, wishing, hope. It's into action. So, anyway, that's what we did. We worked these steps as it was laid out in the book. And then we got to that fourth step. I mean, I did it and went to the fifth step. I forget where we were. I think we were over on Highway 5. I might be wrong in the bedroom. I might be wrong. But he said, look, he said, it's not fair for you to have me to have all the goods on you. He said, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you the worst things ever happened in my life. And man, it just dropped the wall down. I felt more comfortable in sharing with him all this stuff I'm getting ready to share. And so we proceeded. And I don't know where it happened at, but somewhere in the process of the fellowship and a great sponsor, he handed me off to this power grader myself, so to speak, and I'm sober. You know, I'd like to tell you that I read a lot of self-help books and I figured it out, but that ain't the case. I tried. I remember, man, I'm not kidding you. I was listening to the radio one day and they said the number one selling book, and it might be beyond the Bible, I'm not sure, is self-help books. The more people buy self-help books than any other book on the market. And I'm here to tell you, boy, I had 2 or 3 of them. Now, I don't like reading, but I'm going to tell you, I'm reading them damn things. Trying to figure out how to become a sober guy, a better father, better, never work. Since I moved here on April the 20th of 2005, I've not found it necessary to take a drink or anything else. I mainly come here. I live almost in Sanford. When I was moving, I was moving up here on 5, and I called Tom. I was scared because there's always that first for me. There was that first 4th of July. There was that first Halloween, the first Christmas sober. There was the first this sober. And so now I'm moving out of the halfway house. I'm moving up here on 5. There's a liquor store right there. It didn't matter to me what it was. But I said, Tom, I'm kind of scared, man. I said, moving out over here, you know. He said, well, no. I was living on 5, getting ready to move out there where I live at now. That's in the middle of nowhere where I live at now. There ain't nobody near there. And he said, well, Frank, he said, how long you been living there over on 5? I said, about 2 or 3 years. He said, ain't there a liquor store right down below where you live? And I went, yeah. He said, why ain't you ever stopped and got any liquor? So I don't know. He said, you all right. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. The simplicity, which Fallon talked about, has been a big deal. You know, there's guys and women in here have been sober a lot longer or a lot less. But what's the most important thing that I've done today is when I woke up and I did those same discipline and structured things that AA gives me to do. You know, prayer, gratitude list for me. They don't tell you about that in the book, about a gratitude list, but that's what I do. 11 step out of the book. You know, text, call my sponsor, call other alcoholics, come to a meeting. You know, and men told me a long time ago if I do them things I wouldn't drink, but I always had another plan, didn't work. And this is the last thing I'm going to share with you, and this is Jack got down there in Sherrall. He shared this in AA meeting, and this has been my experience in AA. This man, he's an alcoholic. He's got a little boy. Little boy comes and says, Daddy, can we throw a ball? He said, not right now, son. Come back later. He's drinking. It's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Little boy comes back and says, Daddy, can we throw a ball right now? The man's getting a little aggravated. He saw a picture of there was a newspaper picture of the world on it. He took it up, tore it up in a bunch of pieces. He threw it on the floor there. He said, when you put that back together, we'll throw a ball. That little boy got down there. Here you go, Daddy. Daddy was amazed. He said, son, how did you do that? And the little boy replied, Daddy, on the other side was a picture of a man. And the moral of the story, which has been my experience in Alcoholics Anonymous, is that when God puts the man back together, the world will come. But I'm here to tell you that's been my experience. Thank you for asking me to speak tonight, Colonel.
Thank you, Frank. All right, we've passed the baskets, and we offer chips in the program to mark our time, and Paige is going to give out the chips tonight.
I'm Paige, an alcoholic. I have the privilege to give out chips tonight. First chip on my offer is white chip. Anybody heard something they want to come and join us? We offer the white chip. Be still, Neil. You moved on me. 30 days. 90 days. 6 months. 9 months. Well, I really have a privilege tonight for real to come and offer this chip, this 1 year chip. And I know it ain't the quantity, it's the quality. Because we all just got 1 day at a time. But you know, it's a pretty damn big deal to put 365 days together. And what I get to see is the miracle of the program happen in so many women's lives, and I'm so grateful for that. I've got, they want me to do this shit because I'll cry. That's why they want me to do it. And I've had the privilege to watch the miracle happen. I seen this young lady come in, there was no light. There was no light. And all of a sudden, the twinkle started coming back. And I seen her get a sponsor and start doing the deal like Frank was talking about, telling on herself, even when it was uncomfortable. And getting up and going to work, even when she didn't want to. When she was saying, screw the world, she still did it anyway. And did her gratitude list and did her meditations and stuff like that. And what I noticed happened is after these 365 days, she come in with broke wings, and today she can fly. Come on, baby.
One day at a time, definitely. Sometimes a minute at a time. Praying a lot, learning to trust women, people in general. Willingness, desperation, everything.
Anybody else for 1? 2 to 10? 10 to 20? 20 to 78? We'll go back to the white chip. Anybody been back out and want to come back in? You're always welcome back here. Always welcome here. Well, congratulations on those chips you hold.
Congratulations, Jessica. All right, we hold a raffle on Saturday nights. The money from this raffle is used for activities this group supports throughout the year, and Alicia's going to pick the winning number.
Winning number is 721179.
Anybody?
All right, go on.
If you have the winning number, please see Alicia after the Lord's Prayer to get your A book of your choice. We hope you've enjoyed the meeting night. Thank you again, Frank, very much. Please bring your cups and trash to the kitchen after the Lord's Prayer. Next week, we're going to have Keith from Virginia speaking, and this is our 12th tradition reminder. In closing, let us all be reminded of our 12th tradition, which states, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. I have the right to say that I'm an alcoholic and that I attended this meeting, but I do not have the right to say that you're an alcoholic or that I saw you here. What you've seen and heard here is a trust. Leave it here. The doors of AA are always open. Those who enter are free to leave. Those who leave are free to re-enter, and those who stay, stay so. brought us here tonight.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Keep coming back. It works if you work it.
I just put it on hold. It's on hold.